Awesome. Went ahead and pinned a few tweets up at the top for our community. Be sure to go ahead and take a look at the tweets that are pinned at the top. Give it a retweet. Definitely invite some of your friends, your community members, anyone you feel would be really interested in this kind of conversation. This is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to hear from two incredible founders and CEOs for two rapidly growing startups. So really, really our companies, I should say, not even it's not a startup anymore, definitely a company. So super excited to have you both. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up our questions and then introduce to our two lovely guests. So as we get started here, I just want to send a quick little reminder to everyone. Definitely check out the Dustland account. You can also follow Defy at Defy Disrupt. Follow both accounts in order to stay up to date on some of the amazing news and some of the upcoming events that you'll see from both teams. Both Dustland and Defy have some incredible drops that are coming this month, and you definitely don't want to miss out. All right, so welcome to our AMA today. Thank you all for joining. I'm joined by our two lovely guests, the co-founder of Defy, Ben, and the CEO and founder of Olive X, Keith. Both of you, thank you so much for coming. And I know we're super excited to learn more about these move to earn projects, which I think a lot of people are confused by what that term even means. So hopefully we'll get to discover that today. So before we dive in, I feel like everyone, including myself, would love to learn a little bit more about both of you and your background. I know that you both started out as entrepreneurs and have come from the health and fitness industry. And we keep hearing this word metaverse, and I think it's something people want to know. But before we get to that, Keith, would love to learn a little bit about you. And then Ben, if you want to follow up.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Keith, CEO of Olive X. Prior to this company, previously I started a company called Coachbase, which became the #1 sports app on iOS and Android. We got investment from Nike, Techstars, works on NBA teams, and I sold that business and I started Olive X. We were inspired by Pokemon Go, and so our first game was Garfield Fit. So it was trying to copy Pokemon Go. And then we went on to do a couple more apps. And one of them is actually like 3-4 years ago, we did an app called Squat for Crypto. Yeah, exactly what it sounds like. You squat and you earn crypto. And it was #2 on Product Hunt. Fast forward to today, we have Dose Token, we have Dustland Rider and Runner, these upcoming move to earn games that we have. We're super excited about. And so that's kind of the lowdown. And I'll leave it to Ben and then we'll come back to the metaverse thing.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Keith. And I'm also joined by my partner at Defy, Michael, who's our CTO. So my whole career has essentially been in sports, health, and fitness. I used to work for a company called IMG, which is a big US sports marketing company. That's how I cut my teeth. In about 2013, I left and I set up a company organizing running events, mass participation. And then that led us into, in 2017, we saw that the future was really technology and how tech could basically disrupt the world of sports and health and fitness. And so I founded a company called District Technologies with Michael, and we created an app called District, which was basically built around the idea of using exploration and tying that into a game as a way to motivate people to be active. All of the team from Defy have been sort of involved personally in crypto since 2017, 2018, and when we had the opportunity to really sort of take our knowledge from building District into the Web3 space, we jumped at it. So
that's amazing. And apologies, you are correct. We are joined by Michael, and I'm so sorry for not introducing you. Michael, would love to hear about you. Go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Michael, as Ben mentioned. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Defy. I've been working in the technology and mobile app space for a very long time now. Traditionally in the Web2 space, but over the last 18 months, Ben and I have been really looking close at the Web3 space and are very excited by the trajectory of where everything's headed in this technology. In particular, I find myself sort of sitting at an intersection between the health and wellness and fitness tracking side of the mobile app space, but combining that with lots of really deep gamification elements as well. So that's always been a massive passion and interest of mine. And so the Defy project is something that really pretty much ticks all of the the different boxes of places that I'm interested in from a technology space.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Michael. Really appreciate it. And I know the community is excited to learn a little bit more about the people who are heading these exciting projects. So moving on, I feel like we've talked about it. We've mentioned the word. I feel like metaverse, just like the word community, has become like this huge hot buzzword, not just in the startup ecosystem and Web3 space, but just in general. We're seeing everyone do it. Meta is named or changed its entire name around the metaverse. And so hopefully we can start to explore that a little bit today. And so I want to ask all three of you, what is the metaverse and what does that mean to you and how do you define it?
Ben,
Keith,
go
do
first.
you want to go first? Or
Okay,
you
I'll
want
go
me to
first. I'll go first.
Okay,
I'll
you
go
go
first.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give a very specific example because, look, in our website, you're going to see fitness metaverse. And what does that mean, right? So the way we see it is just to recap on how we think of fitness. Fitness 1.0 is DVD and cassette tapes. 2.0, live streaming on demand. 3.0 is where we're at, which is fitness as a game. So if you play Swift, you play Ring Fit, you play Pokemon Go, that's kind of where we're at. But fitness 4.0 is kind of the fitness metaverse where, let's say you run for 10 kilometers and you earn like a black t-shirt NFT that gives you a boost in your stats, maybe like increase in speed. Now, you don't only use that in the running game, but you can use it across our riding game. You can use it in a rowing game. So all these games, imagine all of them being interconnected. And the key word is interoperability. So that's how I think of the fitness metaverse.
Amazing. Ben or Michael?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, two things on sort of the metaverse and where we are at the moment. I mean, our vision as a company for the metaverse is not really the sort of the Ready Player One VR metaverse. Actually, what we think the metaverse will be, and there's many different visions of it, is a virtual world overlaid with our existing physical world. And so, one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is AR. So creating these sort of immersive, engaging experiences by overlaying incredible sort of graphics and AR over the physical world. So that's sort of our vision as a base layer of the metaverse. But then I also think about, tokenization and digital ownership. I think what it is ultimately, it's a new incentive structure. So as Keith has just said, building out this fitness metaverse, we all need a nudge, we all need a push. And I think, tokenization, digital ownership of assets actually allows us to create some really interesting incentive structures. And so, this stuff is going to take time to figure out, but I think we're seeing the beginning of some really incredible stuff.
Amazing. I'll jump in with my sort of more technical minded and perspective on what a metaverse is and how that sort of plays out in this current space. So metaverse, in my mind, the way I view it is it's effectively an overlay or an addition to the physical space. So it's something that allows us to provide augmentations and additional functionality over the top of your existing real world. Now, that's something that can exist in a completely virtual space and in something along the virtual reality side of things, where you put a headset on and are transported to a different space completely. Or in our space, I see it as a melding of the physical universe and the digital or internet-driven metaverse as well. And so with what we're doing with Defy, for example, we're helping to combine those two to tell a narrative that links this virtual world that you may have traditionally seen in a completely digital video game with some of the physical world that you have around you. So in our previous company, we were doing a lot of stuff with the early stages of what this technology looks like. And something that we found was really cool was as people were actually playing our game in the real world, they're exploring and finding some really interesting physical spaces. And we're able to incentivize them to do that and enhance that experience with this digital overlay over the top.
That is amazing. Thank you, all three of you, for that such a deep understanding of the metaverse. And as a person who's a Web3 native myself, I feel like I just got like schooled on new ways to think about it. So now taking it a little bit further, we always see that games and gaming is always so closely associated with the metaverse. Why do you guys think that is? And specifically, is it possible for there to be a metaverse that's separate from gaming?
Okay, I'm going to take a stab at this first. I think gaming is really tied to metaverse because historically, whenever you look at something that's new, gaming is a forefront. So look at it, when the internet came and when the mobile phone just came, what's the first use case? It's gaming, right? So I think gaming is tied really close to metaverse because it's new, but eventually you're going to move on to other applications. But once games take off, then it really proves its use case.
Yeah, I want to add on to that as well, in that I think the cohort of people that are interested in games are generally, they sort of overlap with the people that are forward thinking and willing to explore and try new technologies that maybe aren't quite as refined and on the bleeding edge. And so you generally find that the people that are starting to push this envelope and experimenting with all this new stuff overlaps with people that have a strong interest in gaming. And then also you find a lot of the technologies that are driving this push into metaverse and new technologies in general always overlap with the technologies for games as well. So 3D rendering engines, real-time communication platforms, those sorts of things are something that gaming has been doing for a long time. And we're starting to see all those technologies get meshed together. And I guess the first natural use case for those is something that sort of lines really well with game. But as we move forward from here, we'll start to see, as those technologies get proven and refined in the game space, some of the more traditional groups of people that are less able to cope with bleeding edge, maybe rough around the edges technologies. As that gets more polished, they'll be more open and willing to join as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think sort of gaming is it's a safe space in which to innovate, right? So, it starts with games, but it will move into sort of other parts of society and other parts of life as well.
That's amazing. Thank you all. Thank you for that insight. So now I think this is probably I know Keith and Ben, you both are gamers, and Michael, I'm assuming you are as well. How do you guys think that this new trend of move to earn, play to earn, all these various things, how do you feel like this is going to affect the overall space when it comes to gaming? Do you think that we're going to see behavioral or behavioral shifts, maybe game type shifts into what becomes really popular? Kind of how we saw with the advent of mobile gaming. And I guess a follow-up question is that do you ever imagine that there will be a change for more popular franchises, like FIFA, Final Fantasy, anything of that nature?
Okay, I'm going to take a stab at it first. I think there's two shifts. I think first about the industry and then more about the players later. So industry, look, I've been in the mobile game business or mobile apps business for more than 10 years, right? So we've seen it from zero to maturity. Went from pay to play to free to play. And if you go back, I'm old enough to know that when free to play came out, people thought it was crazy. But now 93 of the top 100 games are free to play games. I think we're still in the early stages of play to earn and move to earn. And it reminds me of the early days of the kind of movement. So I think a lot of game companies will move to the play to earn model. So that's the industry itself. Secondly, to the people that are playing the games. Now, lots of philosophical things down there, how we're going to return the value to the value creators. But simply put, I think same as the early days of professional gamers, right? It's so crazy to think about it, but now it's the norm. I think there are going to be more professional gamers, not just the elite, but with a lot of these move to earn games, you're going to see more and more people. Actually, their full-time job now is to play games. So I think that's a shift.
Yeah, I also think to add on to what Keith is saying, I think as innovators and as entrepreneurs in this space, we actually have a responsibility as well to make sure that the things that people are spending time on and earning from are actually somewhat productive as well. So yeah, getting outside, moving your body, exploring the physical world, that is a good thing. It makes people healthier, makes people happier. And so I think that's quite a philosophical way of looking at it, but I feel like it is also a very important element, which is this is something that the world needs. The world needs to get more active. And so if you can wrap that up in a fun experience that they're also earning from, then, that's a win-win.
And to throw my opinion in the ring as well. So something that I see that's a really cool shift we're starting to see, it's still quite early in this space, but we're starting to see games shift towards a community ownership structure where previously games and game directions are completely governed and driven by the internal creative team of whichever company is developing this content. As we move forward, and with the prevalence of things like DAOs or decentralized autonomous organizations, community is starting to have a much larger amount of input in the direction of these products and platforms as well. And that's something that I can see starting to become really big, which is where as your community grows, they actually have a say in the direction of the ongoing evergreen narrative in these games, universes, and stories as well. So where you see games like Final Fantasy or FIFA and those sorts of things, you'll actually see players dictating the direction of the narrative and structure of things like tournaments and what guilds and organizations within these universes do and those sorts of things. And that's going to be a lot more owned and driven by players.
That is amazing. And I actually have to agree with all three of you. I think I've seen and observed a lot of what you guys are mentioning, and I feel like we're at a space where gaming needs to evolve, right? And maybe this is the way it does. So talking a little bit more in terms of like these move to earn models, we've seen that play to earn games have gotten really popular, Axie Infinity probably being the best example of that. But with DeFi and with Dustland, the games that you guys are developing have similar approaches, but you guys have both taken a unique spin to it. And I'm curious if maybe you guys can explain a little bit more what that looks like and what that means.
Yeah, I'll take a stab first. Look, I think in our game, Dustland, right, we're taking a couple of things. Number one, we're taking inspiration from Death Stranding. I don't know if anyone's played that game, but anyways, that game is about the Earth is like really dangerous. You have these like undead creatures like ghosts on the surface, and basically you can't move on the surface, and you have to deliver cargo from one place to another because you have a special ability to detect dead people. And then if you successfully deliver the cargo, you get rewarded. And so that's what's happening in Dustland, where you as a dust cap, you have to carry cargo from one place to another. And if you complete it, you'll earn tokens and NFTs. And I think, look, Axie has dropped a little bit, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So I think there's a lot of thought we put behind the kind of economy design and tokenomics, and to make it more sustainable, because most people probably know Axie depends on new players coming in, but to design it in a way such that you don't have to rely on new users, that's what we're focused on. And we also second thing we want to focus on is that we think we're moving away from people just buying NFTs to flip. We really think we want to attract real players to the game. And so, like, as you see, when we launch our game later this month, you'll have to complete missions, 1 to 5, and then each mission you'll earn an NFT, and then those NFTs you can burn them to form a map. And so, yeah, you actually the core thesis is you actually have to play it, and you can't just flip it. And so that's kind of my thesis around Dustland. So up to Ben now.
No, that's it's spot on. I mean, so something that makes our game a little bit unique as well is we have these sort of two distinct gameplay modes. One is actually going out into the real world and exploring. You're hacking future systems towers, and that gameplay is broadly similar to, say, Pokemon Go or Ingress. But we also have a different gameplay mode, which we call Hack from Home, which is essentially like a hyper casual style game. And that's also incorporating learn to earn elements. And so this is something that Michael's working on, where throughout the game, you can actually put together and build your own drone, which becomes like an AR drone, which basically becomes your companion or your pet, and it can do tasks for you. And so we're actually teaching people the basics of coding through programming their drones to go out and do tasks for them. So I think that's something which is quite unique and we're quite passionate about. But I think Keith hit the nail on the head with regards to the structuring the economy. In my mind, if it's just value in at the top, value out at the bottom, that's not going to work. It actually, for a vibrant economy, needs to have various inputs and outputs. And so one of the other things that we're working towards is having the ability to actually create NFTs, mint them within our platform, and actually have that creators platform where members of the community can be building their own in-game assets and selling them on a marketplace. So there's a lot of work to be done in that space, but I think the model will evolve, and I think we're seeing it right now.
Amazing. And I think both of you introduced something really unique. You're both taking a different approach and making sure that people are not only finding value and utility around NFTs, which I think is one of the biggest focuses we're seeing in the space right now is, what are we offering for these? But both of you have come up with some unique ways to think about how they can be utilized beyond just having value and how people can build income, how they can, interact with them in real life in unique ways, especially this drone aspect. That's incredible. So kind of talking about more in terms of the tokens, I think, Olivex has DOEs, DeFi will have its own token. What is the purpose behind them, and how are players going to benefit from the token economics of them, and how it relates to the game ecosystem? Ben or Michael, I'd love for you guys to kind of maybe touch on this.
Yeah, definitely. So Defy is a mobile game. So obviously to be on the Apple and Android app stores, there's certain things that we can and can't do. And so we actually have this dual currency system where we have Fcoin, which is essentially the in-game token, and then we have the Defy token. And so the Defy token really is meant to be the token of governance, of utility within the game as well. So there is a swapping mechanism that we have, which is done on a web platform, but we also have the ability for people to syncs in the game where they can be upgrading their NFT assets and things like that. Michael, do you want to add on the tokenomics as well?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Ben, and I think we're going to talk a little bit more about token value shortly as well, but to me, a large reason for these tokens is to provide a way for players to actually own, as you mentioned earlier, the assets that they're purchasing within the game and drive a fully open economy. Something else that's really powerful with these tokens existing as crypto tokens is that they're interoperable between games as well. And so there's definitely vision in my mind for us to have partnerships with some of our partners like Olivex around their DOS tokens potentially within our game, and the Defy tokens being useful in other universes around this metaverse as well.
Keith, your Olivex and the DOS token are actually live. Like, this is something that is available and people have been utilizing for a minute. So I would love for you to kind of share with the community how it's been utilized thus far and maybe some opportunities that are upcoming.
Yeah, so we've launched it, and right now you can't use it in the game yet. So we're super excited to have the game launch very shortly, later this month. So there's actual utility, right? And that's what I keep pounding on. And I think, look, people think about the price a lot, but I think I want to go back to the fundamentals of, like, why do we have a token, right? And how do I see it? Well, why do we have Web3 is to cut out the middleman, to be decentralized. And what I'm trying to say is we're returning value to the value creator. So if we look at the App Store, I've been in App Store for 10 years. Who are the value creators? It's the players that are creating the value because they're creating data all the time. But are they being rewarded? No. Basically, you pay for the game, and then once you switch off, you get nothing. And then, so who is the middleman in this case? Well, in the case of the App Store, is actually the App Store itself, right? Google and Apple, they take a 30% cut, and they're the biggest, intermediary there. So imagine you don't have to pay that 30% cut, and the developers of the game can take that 30% and reward the users. And now it's a win-win situation, because if the players play, and the developers, they both try to, like, players getting more players, get their friends to come and they play more, then the token value will increase. And so that fundamental of, like, having a aligned interest between the game developer and the player is really what excites me and will drive token value.
So you really spoke to the token value, which I think is something that a lot of projects really fail to do. They talk about the hype around the token, they get really excited about people participating, but they don't really give insight into how it provides value to the community. So thank you to all three of you for really diving deep and actually giving us actionable information. So I really want to jump into the game design next. This is something we know the games are coming. We've seen some of the teasers. They look amazing. I think, Keith, you actually tweeted it from your phone recently, which is so cool. So I got to know, like, what were the inspirations for these projects, and kind of, I know they're both location-based games. Was there any reason why you took that approach, or was it just kind of where you ended up after deciding to do it?
Ben can do
Yeah,
this one first.
sure, man. Look, I think the team at Defy are all passionate gamers. We've all got sort of similar but also unique and varied sort of cultural references that we've built into this game design. But yeah, we really wanted to embrace that experience of going out into the real world and exploring. We think that is a very, very rewarding experience. But we also recognize that that is a bit of a barrier to entry. And so when we came up with the game design, where it is at the moment, we thought that it was a something quite unique and with a great chance of success if we could marry sort of a hyper casual game with a location based game as well. And then the narrative, of course, very inspired by things like Mr. Robot, The Matrix, etc. And so from our perspective, we really want to create a very immersive, very engaging game experience that people can really get into, and that's really flowed into how we set up the company and how we set up the game as well. Where it's a revolution. It's not a brand. It has its own vision, and so yeah, we really want to sort of lean into the whole narrative and embrace that throughout the whole thing.
Keith, you've been in gaming for a minute, and I know Dustland isn't the first game you've done. What was the inspiration that kind of brought you to do this this entirely new project?
Yeah, so the inspiration is actually Zombies Run, which we're basing Dustland off right now. And so long story is that Zombies Run is the #1 gamified running app out there for a long time. And we acquired that studio. It's like a dream come true. And then I actually got inspired by them in the first place. And now we're turning that engine into Dustland Rider. And why was I inspired by Zombies Run is because it's unique in a way such that people think, oh, is it the gaming aspects, the gamification? No, it's the key thing is actually the story and how Zombies Run has created a credible world first and then a deep story. And it's actually written by Naomi Alderman, which is a award-winning writer who has a TV series on Amazon. And I think that's what sets us apart. Dustland is a very deep story with like multiple locations and factions, and like you can play this for years. And it ties in with NFTs because I think there's a lot of casual games and hyper casual games, but like our game is designed for you to play for years with the deep storytelling. So that's what inspired me.
That's so exciting and really speaks to the longevity of both of these games. So moving on to our next question, both of these games have NFTs, which are kind of a little bit of a barrier to entry for the games. And can you speak a little bit in terms of how high that barrier is, and whether or not you think that that's going to limit the wider community from being able to participate?
Michael, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, happy to take this from our side. So we think it's important for our game to be accessible to a wide user base. And so for that reason, we're actually introducing a way for free-to-play players to join in to the experience, and albeit a somewhat limited way, but anyone with a mobile device will be able to join and take part in the revolution. But then we provide a bunch of deeper gameplay, narrative, and technology elements to people who own these NFTs as well. So we have somewhat of a split approach here where it allows us to hit both types of users. Beyond that as well, we're also working on a mechanism around our masks that helps us partner with some of these large player guilds and those groups of users who effectively fund the upfront cost of these NFTs for players who maybe can't afford it, but not just having it so that those people who are effectively being scholars to these groups being stuck forever working for these groups. We're actually looking at building a mechanism in there as well that allows them as part of their gameplay to earn their way to the point of purchasing their own NFT so that they're able to actually become a fully fledged game member moving forward as well. So that allows us to be accessible to pretty much anybody who's keen to be part of the experience.
Yeah, my thoughts are our mission is to make 1 billion people move and at the same time onboard them on the blockchain. And if you have to require everyone to buy an NFT as a gateway, I don't think we can get to 1 billion people. So yeah, similar to DeFi, we have a way for you to free to play, and then eventually earn your first NFT and token. So you don't need to buy it to play it. So that's our philosophy.
I think that's such a it's such a good way of putting it as well, because like that, my first NFT moment for people is, it's like a light bulb moment. So I think if these games can actually introduce people in a fun and engaging way to digital assets and NFTs, then that's a huge win.
I 100% agree. I remember when I got my first NFT and being like, "Oh, this is so cool! Like I'm part of the in crowd now." I think a lot of people are going to be excited to have that, especially if it's something that they get to earn for free, Keith. I think that's something that's very, very key. So kind of moving into more about the premise of these games, both of them are really around this idea of encouraging people to stay active, which, especially in wake of COVID, is an amazing and really good goal for us to have. Um, but since the majority of people who are kind of in that space aren't really on the blockchain, how are you guys thinking about building an on-ramp to bring those who want to be active into essentially into Web3?
Yeah, great question. I think we sort of just touched on this before as well, but I mean, I think what Web3 gives us the ability to do is to create these sort of reward and incentive structures as well. And it certainly can't be all focused on the earning element, but I think, excuse me, I think the fact that we have the ability to reward people for their day-to-day healthy activities is huge. And so the way that I see play to earn is like the earning mechanism is really that's the economic flywheel at the beginning of the process to onboard people, and then hopefully the game is fun enough and good enough that people want to continue to do it. So I do think that the reward structure is super important. I think if people can be active, stay healthy, and also earn, that's huge. So to me, I think that's really the focus for us.
Yeah, I think, look, 99% of the people who are exercising aren't our blockchain yet, right? Globally speaking. I think there's two parts to it. Number one is like I alluded to, like, first of all, you have to have a mechanism where they can earn their first NFT or token without paying for it first. So we got that solved. But secondly is like how you market your product, because I think a lot of projects are marketing to existing crypto communities. That's because, that's where people have the money to do so. But we take a different approach where, hey, if you're running app, you should advertise to the running community and running magazines that don't have crypto yet, and they might find this interesting. And we're also partnering with a lot of fitness brands. So we signed a couple. We signed Stages as a cycling company, Gym Aesthetics, and so yeah, reaching non-crypto people and your marketing is also critical.
That's awesome. And it's good to know that you guys are thinking about ways to reach the market. I think I agree with you, Keith. I think a lot of projects, especially in the Web3 space, are only focused on people already here, which, in my opinion, is thinking way too small. So it's great to know that you guys are thinking a lot bigger. So kind of, we've talked about the present, we've talked about the current space, and now let's talk about the future. And I am going to ask this question to all three of you. I would love to get your insights. Describe to me 2 years from now, we've hopefully gotten, never have to hear the word COVID again. What does the metaverse look like at that time? Is Meta kind of taken over and given us a Ready Player One, dystopia, or are we going to see a solar punk utopia? What is the metaverse going to look like then?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in here. I think to reiterate, I think that the metaverse, if I have a crystal ball, it looks like the real world with more of the virtual world overlaid in it. So I see a future where things like tickets to go to events, memorabilia, memories are all on the blockchain as NFTs and digital assets. So yeah, I'm very, very bullish on the AR side of things. We have been experimenting with AR lenses, and I actually think that that's going to take people by surprise, because that is actually closer to becoming mainstream than people think. The whole Google Glasses thing was a bit of a flop, but I think the next generation of those bits of technology is going to be amazing. And so, yeah, that's really the vision that I see moving forward.
Yeah, on my side, there's a few things that I can see in terms of where we're headed in this space. So, um, metaverse and crypto themselves are not the same technologies, but they are inherently linked. I see generally around the way people are actually viewing and entering into these metaverses, the technologies around those will always be moving forward. So, the AR, VR, and mobile phone space. In particular, we're getting a lot closer to, as Ben mentioned, commercially available AR glasses, which I think is going to be the next modality shift in mobile computing. So, in particular, I know Apple and a number of other of these companies are working on these AR glasses, and that's going to be, I think, a massive shift in that space. Another thing that I think is where we're headed, and not quite, but over the next few years, we'll start to see is unified profiles for users on this decentralized metaverse that will be portable across all of these different experiences. And rather than there being 50 separate metaverses that are all competing for your accounts and users, we'll start to see a unified profile across all of those. The other thing that I'm seeing us moving towards, and has always been improving, but I think the next 2 years will be a pivotal shift in, is just the refining and the reduction of friction for the on-ramp to get people into this metaverse and blockchain space. So I remember when I first got into crypto about 10 years ago now, you had to, walk down a back alley with some money in an envelope and hand it to some shady person to buy your crypto and on board. And obviously that side of the equation has improved dramatically with exchanges and all of those sorts of things improving their onboarding process. And I only think that's going to keep getting better with better on-ramping, faster and more efficient KYC, and all of those sorts of things being improved as well around wallets for people to be able to get on board as easily as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly talk about how I think on a macro view, I think a metaverse is like there will be a lot of companies coming into the move to earn space to build the whole ecosystem. And I think what's going to be different is that instead of a Web 2.0 where you have one dominant player like Google or Facebook eating everybody out, I think in the metaverse, the analogy is like there's been multiple countries. You can't have just one country. Some countries will be bigger, but some countries will be smaller. But I think the whole move to earn space will be much, much bigger in 2 years' time. And I think what's going to be key is that you're going to be seeing a lot of traditional Web 2 businesses that are successful going to move into Web 3 as well. And that's going to be super exciting. So I think the whole space is going to be, we're in the early stage of move to earn. I think it's going to be huge in 2 years. And that's why we're actively investing, collaborating with everybody.
Thank you all for those insights. And I was giggling a little bit at the idea of like the back alley. I remember back in like 2015, oh gosh, it had to be like 2017. I remember trying to purchase some Bitcoin and had to go to Walgreens and like do a green dot card and like do all these steps in order to get some. So it's really fascinating to see how far we've come. So one question I really would love to ask, and Keith, and you in particular, I know that this is something that you've talked about sometimes, and maybe you'll have insight, is we see a lot of hot projects, right? We see the hot new NFT drop, the new Web3 or crypto company. We're seeing all the money that's moving around in VC, but it seems like a lot of these projects are really short-lived. There's a ton of hype, tons of enthusiasm, it dies, and then the project just never really gains traction again. And it just seems that a lot of people are diving into projects that don't have a long-term or sustainable roadmap. So I'm curious, what is your advice for project owners? And what is your advice for buyers? So that way they can be kind of keeping a lookout for some of those really good long-term project opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been a lot of rug pulls recently where you have NFT projects that did really well, and then people got rug pulled, and that's bad for the industry as a whole. But I think, like I alluded to earlier, there's a lot of companies that actually have a track record of producing successful products, right? And they have the experience. And actually, producing a game is non-trivial. Like it reminds me of the early days of Indiegogo and Kickstarter. People raise a lot of money, but they actually don't know how to make it, and then they end up never coming out to life, right? So for us, we've been in the industry for like 10 years. We've produced multiple award-winning games, one Google Best. And we have Zombies Run, right, which is already in the market, right? So like we're confident we can deliver, and we're listed. So I think checking out the project team's experience is one thing, but also I talked about thoughtfulness, right? And you can see if like they're selling the NFTs just for flippers or actually or they're actually trying to recruit real players. So we talked about how the NFTs, you have to actually use it to unlock tokens. And so like the thoughtfulness is also important too. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I think it's something that I wish it was a topic that was more talked about, honestly. So thank you for those insights. So, we've had some prepared questions, kind of hit you a little hard, but I'm nothing compared to the community. So we're going to go ahead and transition into some of these questions that we've gotten from the community. These are ones that were submitted both on Twitter and from the Fitness Metaverse Discord run by Olive X. And so the individuals that we've picked, they are going to win an incredible package of prizes, including Defy Genesis Mask, whitelist spot, which is awesome. So first question that I have for you guys here, and this one is specifically for Keith. It comes from, I hope I say this right, China2027 on Twitter. For Dustland Rider, it seems like there is a little bit of a high barrier to entry because you need a smart bike. So I would love to hear, the community would love to hear from you, Keith, about your thoughts on that. And do you see that as a barrier to adoption or more so something that isn't as big of a concern?
I love that question. It's really great. So I think people underestimate how many people have bikes. So first of all, yes, you need a smart bike, or you can buy $20 US dongle and attach it to your bike. So that barrier is actually not as high as you think. And secondly, there's a lot more players than you anticipated, right? So Ring Fit sold 10 million copies. And everyone knows about Ring Fit, but there's a game called Swift. They have 3 million players, and Peloton has 6 million. So that's like 9 million. So there's a ton of people who have bikes at home already. And what's more important is that whenever you look at a segment, you want to look at their growth rate instead of where they are now. So like the early days of yoga, Lululemon, people thought it was super small, but they were the fastest growing segment, right? And then over like a span of 10 years, it compounded, it became a super big segment. I think cycling, although relatively small now, it's going to be huge in a couple of years. So that's what I think.
Thank you for that insight, and thank you to that user for submitting. So this next question is for Ben and Michael. What is one of the most unique features of Defy compared to most other famous projects? And would you describe the other side of this question you guys have already talked about, which is just talking about the token economics. So if you'd like to expand on it, feel free.
Yeah, definitely. I think the most unique thing is the fact that we are bringing together the location-based AR game, the ability for you to build your own sort of companion program that in the real world, but then also tying that with sort of the community, the hacking, playing from home element as well, which I described as hyper casual before. So I think that's very unique, bringing those two game modes together. And I think that provides a lot of opportunities for the community to engage over a long term. Michael, anything to add, mate?
Yeah, I think another thing that's pretty unique about our project as well is the multiple modalities in which people can play within the game. So as Ben mentioned, we've got the in real life experience that's somewhat similar to our Pokemon Go, where you're actually out and viewing this overlay over the world and interacting with it through the narrative there. But then also allowing people who are maybe inside and not necessarily in a position to go out and walk at a present moment, they can actually partake both in some at-home hyper-casual style gaming, but also on our roadmap is features that allow them to interact with people in the real world as well. And so it allows, if I'm out in the real world and I need assistance, I can actually request that from people who are not necessarily out and maybe in a completely different country, and they'll be able to interact with me, and our game space will be able to collide, I guess. And I think that's a pretty unique game element, not even just in the Web3 space, but just in general across the mobile gaming space as well.
Wow, that is incredibly insightful. Thank you so much. All right, next question is again for Keith. How do you plan to make Dustland appealing to non-crypto workout lovers? I know that's something we've talked on a little bit, but I think this is something that people really want to know a little bit more about. If you can speak to that, and that comes from Happy Utonian on Discord, who actually is in the space right now. Thank you, Happy, for submitting this question.
Yeah, no, just to recap on a couple of things. So for those that just joined, I think our mission is to get 1 billion people moving, and at the same time onboard them onto crypto. So a couple of elements. Number one, there's a free-to-play element. You don't have to buy an NFT to play our game. So that's number one. And you might have noticed that, we've also had a free NFT drop campaign recently. So we want to get as many people on board as possible. So that's part one. And then part two is like, I think that's why our runner app is so critical, because everyone has a mobile phone, and then so that's why we've chose mobile as a platform, because it can reach the most people, and that's how you can get more people. And then the last part, which is I alluded to, is marketing. Right, we're not just marketing to the crypto centric crowd. We're gonna go to the existing fitness magazines, fitness partners that we have, and Stages and all the other ones, to find the non-crypto users and play our game.
That's so cool. And thank you for that. As a person who is trying to get back into working out and finding the inspiration, I think maybe I just found it with Dustland. So this question is actually for all three of you. And if you guys can definitely trade off, or if one of you wants to hop in first, feel free. This question comes from Jad Hassan Opu 9 on Twitter. How do you guys plan to spread awareness about the project in other countries beyond the US, where English maybe is not as well spoken? Do you envision having local communities like in Vietnam, Indonesia, Korea, or places like that?
Okay, maybe I'll take a stab at this one first. Look, I think that there's two parts. Number one is that I myself is a bilingual speaker, right? I speak Cantonese, Mandarin, and so obviously I'm aware that I would like more language support, and we've been in a game publishing industry for a long time, right? And so basically we need to localize all our content, and have local community managers. And there's like a general playbook we used to do, because look, with our previous apps, we have over 7 million downloads across our fitness apps. And we pushed it to multiple Southeast Asian countries, and that's coming very soon.
Yeah,
that's
and
awesome.
just to add on,
Michael? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, some similar experience to Keith's, really, like with District Technologies, building out that business. We always had a sort of a multi-language functionality built into the app. So absolutely, like that's part of the plan, is that we will support, languages with the most demand there. So I think that's really critical if we want to be authentic and want to grow the game.
Fantastic. I think we're definitely moving into a future where the world is getting global. And what I mean by that is globalization has happened. It is here. And so it's good to know that the gaming space is embracing that as well. Michael, is there something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, just to add on to Ben's perspective from a technology side, our team has a lot of experience with building apps that will work across multiple languages, and that's something that's really important to us. We're a global team within our team as well, with staff members across multiple regions. We have, for example, staff members based in the Philippines as well, and so making sure that game is accessible to communities all around the world, I think, is incredibly important, particularly when you look at games like Axie, where they have a large number of their community members based in that sort of Southeast Asian region. I think this play to earn space is not just primarily driven by the US, like some people think, but it's truly a global community. And I think for you to succeed in this space, you have to be thinking about that from day one.
I 100% agree. So moving on to this question, and this is for Ben and Michael. With Defy's will DeFi be an easy experience for people who are non-tech savvy? We see that AR, VR, our technology and hardware is becoming very common, but it can be a little intimidating to people. So how do you envision people who maybe aren't as tech savvy interacting with it?
Yeah, I'll take this one. This is something that we as a team have a lot of experience with as well. As Ben mentioned earlier, we've worked in the event space with mass participation events in our previous companies. And a large number of our users who were coming to these events, and these were events that were actually driven by mobile applications as well. We had existing users who were coming and playing that were not tech savvy at all. So we understand the importance of reducing friction on the onboarding process, and also providing really easy and clear steps to allow people to get up to speed with how to use the technology. That's something that we've done for a long time and have, in my opinion, perfected the art of, is bringing these types of people into our community.
That's awesome. And just to explain, part of the reason why I'm excited about your guys' project, I bought the very first pair of spectacles from Snapchat, who is probably the most slept on tech company, in my opinion, when it comes to AR. So very excited to see what you guys are doing there. And it's great to hear about those kind of experiences from those who maybe are new to it.
Definitely. We've
go
got
ahead,
a couple of those spectacles in our office in Queensland, actually. So, yeah, we're playing around with it as well.
That's awesome. You got me real excited if you guys got your hands on the Spectacles 3, especially. So that's good to know. So this next question is for Keith, and this is more so related to Sandbox, which is probably one of the biggest partnerships you guys have, besides this one, that you've revealed recently. I'm curious to know, and this question comes from Meta Passion on Discord. They're curious to know, does the 12 by 12 Sandbox LAN have anything to do with fitness? Or is it just a general land that people can visit and do stuff related to Olive X, but doesn't necessarily relate to this move to earn style?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like the name Meta Passion. So why do we have a piece of land in a sandbox? I think multifold, right? So I think we're trying, our strategy is build, partner, and invest or acquire. And so we don't just play alone. And so sandbox signifies two things. Like, we want interoperability. So we have a huge piece of land. We're going to recreate Dustland in there. And also, we're going to partner with the fitness brands where the non-crypto people are and get them into the sandbox and into Dustland as like a segue into the game, right? So at this moment, he's right. The sandbox is still really early, still in alpha phase, and there's really no move element in there yet. But eventually, there's a tie-in, right? Like, so you see your character moving around in Dustland. The data that you get from running and cycling will power some NFTs and some upgrades inside your sandbox experience game. So that's coming down in the mid-long term. But right now, you're going to go in, you can see Dustland, and you're going to see all the fitness brands that we're working with in there for now.
That is so cool. That is so cool. And I've been following Sandbox. It's so awesome seeing the new drops and partnerships announced. So great to know what's coming. This next question is for all three of you, and I think it's more so to do, with some IRL opportunities. This comes from Sam over on Discord. Do any of you have plans in the long term to sell like sports costumes, like jerseys, wristbands, or anything like that in game? And is there ever a possibility that those might be done out of the game as well?
Good question. Thanks, Sam. I think for us, yeah, part of the game plan for Defy is having these customizable avatars that become a sort of core part of the game. So in terms of like physical stuff and sort of shipping it around, probably not. But in terms of creating items that you can use to customize your avatar in game, absolutely. So yeah, that is part of the plan.
Yeah, I just want to share a quick actual anecdote. Actually, for Zombies Run, the game that we actually have a store, and actually a significant portion of our revenue comes from the store selling Zombies Run merch. But what it is that we actually have like a racing pack that you can get. So you sign up for a 5K, 10K race. We send you a package. It comes with a T-shirt, some stickers, some maybe like a map or a postcard or something related to the game. And then when you finish the game, we actually send you a medal. Physical medal, and people love it, and so we're gonna do something like that in the future as well for Dustland.
That is so cool, and I had no idea that such a large amount of revenue was coming from that. That is awesome. All right, so one of the questions that we have here comes from Daniel over on our Discord. Do any of you have plans for a long-term partnership that will have other move to earn projects as part of like a tournament where we can maybe see a competition between multiple different move to earn games?
I'll go first. We don't at the moment, but it's certainly an interesting idea, is what I would say. That I think interoperability is critical, and opportunities to collaborate are really important. We're going to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, and actually, this is a great idea. You inspired me. Honestly, we haven't thought about it that far yet. I think it would be super cool. You have a tournament but we partner with Defy, and we've also invested in several move to earn companies. So this is like something that that could be in the pipelines. But thanks for inspiring us.
That I have to. I'm going to give you some props on that one, Daniel. You stumped the CEOs and the CTO. Congratulations. All right. Our next question here is more so talking about competition, and this comes from First Elon on Twitter. Although Elon, I don't think you were the first. How are you guys going to beat competitors? Because at this moment there are some different projects that are coming out with some similar themes. And how would you say that you differentiate yourself from the competition, and what either of you offer?
Oh, yeah, okay. I think for us, it's, there is space for many different games. I don't see it as a sort of a do or die competition. I think there's space for plenty of different move to earn projects that are all going to be successful. But I think from our perspective, we come at building this game from maybe a slightly different perspective than other players in the space, where we've been building and shipping really good apps, working with global companies for many years. And the money that we raise, through our token sales is being reinvested in really having the best team in the world, building an incredible thing. So I think that's what it's all about, having that vision, making sure that you get the right team around you, and continue to innovate, because I think you can't really stand still. The product is never finished. You need to continue to take it up a level every single day.
Yeah, I think you have to shift your mindset. I don't really see competition. I think Web3 is all about having multiple countries that work with each other. And I think within the space, it's like gaming, right? There are so many games, even within the shooter category. There are some futuristic shooters. There's like some like cowboys. Like, so different people have different preferences, right? So I think the ecosystem will benefit from multiple different games, and people will play multiple games at the same time. So I don't see them as competition, and that's why we've also invested in multiple. So if you have a game out there, we invest in you. And the last part is, how do we differentiate ourselves? I think the one thing we're really keen on is actually our world building and our story writing. I think story is hard to copy. If you look at the Harry Potters and the Marvels, like how can you copy Harry Potter? And I think that's why Zombies Run has been around so long and been so successful. Many people have tried to copy it, but it's actually really hard to copy the essence of it. So
yeah, and
I
I'm
understand.
definitely on the same page as you, Keith, as well. I think story and narrative is something that's, like, while it's not an intellectual property that can be trademarked or protected, I guess it's the thing that is uncopyable. You can't just sort of take it and plonk it somewhere else. You see people try and do it, and it's never as good as the original. And that's something that is just super key for us in our experience, as well as making sure that our narrative, the threads go through every single element of the game. And that's a large part of our design process when we're coming up with our game elements is, as alongside, does this feature improve the gameplay itself? How does it actually fit within the narrative? And does this enrich or reduce the powerfulness of our narrative as well?
It's 100% true. You can copy someone's style, but you cannot copy their knowledge and expertise and experience. It's impossible. And the three of you have it in spades. So the last question that we have here is from AlphaBeat777 on Twitter. And they're asking, will there be unique events, tasks, special campaigns for the players who've placed themselves in certain ranking criteria? Having a leaderboard and kind of having this Hall of Fame, it really allows users to kind of aim for these exclusive targets. And is that something that is planned for the future of either of these games?
Yeah, I'll jump straight in on this one. That's a really big part of what makes gamified experiences really powerful and engaging for a set of our users anyway. Not all users will be driven by these hyper-competitive leaderboards and Hall of Fame, but it is something that drives a large portion of the player bases who will partake in our experiences. So from my side, I'm really working hard to try and provide ways to incentivize people to be on these leaderboards. There's two different ways you can reward people, for getting up in these leaderboards. One of them is the social status that comes along with that. So making sure that their visibility high on that leaderboard is pushed out to a large number of people, so that they feel like they're almost reaching a level of intimacy by being up there. But beyond that as well, we're actually tying some financial incentives as well around our tokens and how we're doing our reward structures around that to provide a driver for people to be engaging with the game to get to those spots as well.
Yeah, and I'm just going to quickly, we have multiple apps, and one of them is 22 push-ups, and we have leaderboard for the longest streak ever. And we found how powerful leaderboards are. There are people who have continuously used the app for over 1,256 days, right? Like just to stay on the and so having a leaderboard it will motivate a lot of people, and yeah, we'll definitely put in there further down the line.
As a person who is very big on competition, I look forward to that. All right, guys, it looks like we have come to the end of our AMA. I want to say an incredibly special and huge thank you to all three of our guests, Keith, Ben, and Michael, for sharing your knowledge, your vision, and your passion about Move to Earn today. It's a really exciting space, and I think everyone can in this space, in this Twitter space, and in the ecosystem as a whole can agree that the three of you are on the verge of something incredible. And I know for myself and many others, we're eagerly looking forward to how things turn out. Thanks to all of you who were able to join the space today and stay until the end. There were so many awesome nuggets. If you take a look at the top here at the pinned tweets, you can actually see the sneak peek at Dustland that Keith tweeted out a little bit ago. Definitely check that out. In the meantime, be sure to follow both Defy and Dustland and Doze all on Twitter, so that way you can keep up to date on the latest and greatest. And then finally, be sure to check out the Fitness Metaverse Discord. You can find the link in the Dustland bio. There, you'll be able to hang out and communicate with other community members, stay up to date on things that are coming from Dustland, the Sandbox collaborations and partnerships. And then finally, you can also make sure that you never miss out on any opportunities for airdrops or special events. Might be even an opportunity to get into a special secret chat that's sitting in the Discord that only a certain number of people get access to. So be sure to join the Fitness Metaverse Discord so you can definitely participate. Lastly, to all the winners who got their questions answered, congratulations. If you submitted on Discord, you will get a contact via support ticket. And for those of you who submitted your questions on Twitter, please send a DM to the Dustland account. Thank you all so much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and say we are done. Enjoy your evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you happen to be. Thank you all again for being a guest, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your week.